is Izimoha and you're watching AnewZ. Let's see your headlines. The U.S. and Iran are set for high-stakes talks in Pakistan as tensions persist. 6 killed and 14 injured in Kyiv shooting as gunman is neutralized. And the Antalya Diplomacy Forum wraps up after 3 days of talks and high-level meetings. U.S. and Iranian officials are set for high-stakes talks in Pakistan aimed at de-escalating tensions. President Trump has confirmed he is sending a delegation, warning that U.S. strikes could resume without a peace deal. Iranian sources say their delegation is set to arrive on Tuesday with hopes of announcing a ceasefire extension the following day. However, Trump has accused Iran of violating the current truce by blocking the Strait of Hormuz. Despite ongoing disagreements, Turkey's foreign minister says both sides remain committed to continuing negotiations. Tensions are escalating sharply in the Gulf as a critical maritime choke point becomes the center of a growing standoff between Iran and the United States. With threats to shipping and limited vessel movement, concerns are rising over the risk of a wider confrontation and disruption to global trade.
Iran has closed the Strait of Hormuz again, warning that any ship attempting to pass through could be targeted. The move was announced by Iran's Revolutionary Guards Navy, which says the vital shipping route will remain shut until the United States lifts its blockade on Iranian ports. Fresh tracking data shows only limited movement on Sunday with just 2 ships, a Chinese-owned LPG tanker and an Indian-owned vessel traveling eastbound near the strait after midnight Greenwich Mean Time. The data shows vessels had been moving through the area on Friday, but many were seen turning back on Saturday as the situation escalated. At least some ships are now reported to have come under fire, raising fears of a wider confrontation at sea. Iran's parliament speaker and senior negotiator Mohammad Bakir Kalibaf said Tehran remains in control of the strait despite what it describes as a U.S. naval blockade.
If there is a strait here, we are here, and everyone who wants to go through it, let them all go through. Except us. Is this even possible? This is also a mistake on top of a mistake. Naturally, I said that if they don't lift the siege, traffic in the strait will definitely be limited. Restrictions will come.
President Donald Trump says the United States will not be blackmailed and insists the naval blockade will remain in place until a deal is reached.
Wanted to close up the strait again, as they've been doing for years, and they can't blackmail us. In fact, a lot of the ships are coming up to Texas. I don't know if you know, in Louisiana, the ships are coming up. They got used to it. Maybe they'll keep doing it. It's worked out pretty good. But it's going actually along very well. And we'll see, but we'll have some information by the end of the day. We're talking to them. And, we're taking a tough stand.
Iran, however, says the blockade itself breaches a 2-week ceasefire agreement and has accused the U.S. of what it calls piracy, saying it is acting in response to continued restrictions on its ports and vessels.
Iran's missile program is emerging as one of the most resilient and extensive in the region, with capabilities designed for both reach and endurance. Even under sustained pressure, its scale and structure continue to pose a significant strategic challenge.
Iran has the largest ballistic missile stockpile in the Middle East, with systems designed to strike targets across the region, according to the U.S. Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Tehran says it has kept a self-imposed range limit of 2,000 kilometers, enough to reach Israel, although some reported systems are listed at up to 2,500 kilometers. That capability rests on 4 main strengths: size, range, variety, and survivability. The Center for Strategic and International Studies says the arsenal includes a mix of short and medium-range missiles, including the Sejil, Imad, Ghadar, Shahab-3, Khorramshahr, and Khaybar. Over the years, Iran has worked to improve range, mobility, and deployment speed, while also developing missiles that are harder to detect and intercept. Iran has also tried to modernize the program. In 2023, it unveiled what it described as its first domestically developed Fateh hypersonic missile. A major part of Iran's missile capability is underground infrastructure, often referred to by Iranian officials and state media as missile cities. These are hardened bases built to protect missiles, launchers, and support systems from airstrikes. According to Alma Research and Education Center, one reported site near Shiraz was identified as one of 25 primary bases capable of launching medium-range ballistic missiles. That underground network helps explain why the missile program is so difficult to eliminate. Before the Iran-Israel conflict began on February 2026, estimates of Iran's missile stockpile range from about 2,500 to as many as 6,000, depending on the source. Even after weeks of strikes, assessments suggested only about a third of the arsenal had been confirmed destroyed, according to sources close to US intelligence. Another third was believed to be damaged or buried in underground bunkers, while the rest remained potentially active. Iran was also assessed to have retained at least 30% of its launch capacity. During the conflict, Israeli military officials reported that some Iranian missiles carried cluster warheads, creating an added challenge for air defenses because they need to be intercepted before they break apart. Together, those capabilities make Iran's missile program a force built not only for reach, but for survival, allowing it to remain a credible military tool even under sustained attack.
The human cost of the Lebanon conflict is coming into sharper focus as families begin returning to homes reduced to rubble. Despite a fragile ceasefire, uncertainty remains over whether the pause in fighting can hold.
60-year-old Zahra Eid has returned to her home, which was destroyed by Israeli airstrikes, and faced the ruins. She stood among the rubble of her house in the southern Lebanese town of Ta'adeba. Eid said she fled on the first day of the war with her 3 daughters and later moved to the Jbeil area. She returned on the second day of the ceasefire and tried to recover items from the rubble, including clothes, a laptop and a photograph of her late husband.
Of course, I was upset that my life's work was gone. I mean, all my life's hard work is now gone, and now I have to rebuild. I mean, the situation is different from before. I've had this for about 10 years. I have been living in this house for 10 to 11 years. It's not that old, but this room was old. I came and I cried a little, me and my daughters, and then we started taking out our things. I came from Tyre, I brought things for Ramadan, and I sat down and put them here on the table in the living room. Underneath this, pointing to ceiling, there was a table and sofas and stuff. I left them and went.
According to official figures, more than 2,000 people were killed in Lebanon during the war, and around 1.2 million were displaced from their homes. US President Donald Trump has said that the United States has ordered Israel to stop further strikes in Lebanon. The statement came a day after a 10-day ceasefire was announced.
One is always bothered by losing their memories. We have good memories here, memories that can't be forgotten. They can last a lifetime. Even if you rebuild 20 houses, the memories will stay in my head.
The agreement between Lebanon and Israel has raised hopes of easing tensions in the parallel US Iran conflict. However, the deal leaves key questions unanswered. It does not include a requirement for Israeli forces to withdraw from southern Lebanon, while Israel says its military operations will continue.
Living conditions in parts of Gaza are deteriorating as displaced families face growing health risks in overcrowded camps. With waste building up and basic services stretched, concerns are rising over the potential for disease outbreaks. Here's more.
Families displaced in the Gaza Strip are struggling to survive in worsening conditions as piles of rubbish build up around makeshift camps. On Thursday in Deir al-Balah, children are seen picking through waste, often looking for food, and playing beside heaps of rubbish, with tents set up just meters away. A bulldozer moves waste nearby as families try to carry on with daily life in the middle of contaminated areas.
We came here just to gather what we could, go to the bakery to bake and try to survive. But the rubbish around us is attracting insects and mosquitoes and affecting everyone, including displaced families. At night we cannot sleep because of the itching. The numbers are large. Most of us are displaced from northern Gaza, especially Beit Lahia. This rubbish dump is very close to the tents, full of mosquitoes and insects, and we spend the night scratching, especially the children. There is no proper healthcare or treatment. Because of the amount of waste, children search through the rubbish, find leftover food or items, eat them, then fall ill.
Officials warn that if the waste is not cleared, it could lead to disease outbreaks as insects spread and strong odors fill the area, with children being the most affected.
My daughter is ill. Her chest is burning with fever. It's been 4 days, from Friday until today, Thursday, and the temperature is still high. I took her to the clinic and she was given injections, but I don't know what is wrong with her or what caused it. It's all because we are living next to this rubbish dump. We are sitting right beside it, as you can see. I appeal to all Arab countries to help us, or at least move us away from here and provide us with a camp or somewhere to live. Tents, food, water, anything. I just hope everyone can help us.
Residents are now calling for urgent international support, not only for food and water, but for safer living conditions and basic services.
A deadly incident in Kyiv has triggered a major security response, with multiple casualties reported. Authorities are now working to establish what happened and why.
At least 6 people have been killed and 14 others injured after a gunman opened fire in Kyiv's Holosivsky district before barricading himself inside a supermarket. Authorities say the attacker first shot people in the street before entering the store, triggering a major police operation in the area. Emergency crews and investigators remained at the scene as police secured the district around the supermarket.
The attacker has been neutralized. He was holding hostages. Sadly, he killed one of the hostages. He killed 4 people right on the street. Another woman died in hospital. She had serious injuries. 4 hostages were rescued. As of now, we know that 14 people were injured. Unfortunately, this number may go up. Among the injured is a 12-year-old boy.
President Volodymyr Zelensky says investigators from the National Police and the Security Service are now working to establish the motive behind the attack. Officials say the suspect was born in 1968, had previous criminal convictions, and had lived for a long time in the Donetsk region. Prosecutors say he was originally from Moscow. Authorities also say he had a registered firearm license, and investigators are checking how he was allowed to continue using the weapon.
Police negotiators spoke with him for around 40 minutes. We tried to persuade him. Realizing that there was an injured person there, we offered to bring in tourniquets to stop the bleeding and so on. But he did not respond, so the order was given to eliminate him, especially after he killed one of the hostages.
Interior Minister Ihor Klimenko says officers attempted to negotiate with the gunman before launching the final assault. Police later stormed the supermarket and killed the suspect, ending the hours-long hostage situation. Ukraine's security service says the shooting is being investigated as a terrorist act.
Bulgaria is heading back to the polls as voters look for a way out of prolonged political instability. With frustration over corruption and repeated elections running high, the result could shape the country's direction in the months ahead.
Voters in Bulgaria are casting their ballots today in the country's 8th parliamentary election in 5 years. Former President Rumen Radev is the clear frontrunner, pledging to end political instability and tackle corruption.
Well, better politics, better for the people, so that things can... It's become very expensive. Production needs to develop because it has declined a lot, and for us to live better.
I think all Bulgarians know this. This is the corruption in Bulgaria. This is the judiciary. That's where absolutely everything begins.
Radev, known for his pro-Russian stance and opposition to military support for Ukraine, resigned from the presidency in January to enter the race. The vote comes after mass protests in December brought down the previous government. A strong social media campaign, solid financial backing and promises of stability have boosted Radev's support. In the nation of around 6.5 million people, voters are frustrated by repeated snap elections and an old political elite widely associated with corruption.
Well, only for the better. Finally, to get out of this swamp we've been in for what? Over 30 years of transition, it hasn't even ended. It's the same people, oligarchs, organized crime, everything working together, keeping us in this situation, taking public resources, and nothing changes. We're just the poorest.
Recent opinion polls suggest Radev's Progressive Bulgaria party could secure around 35% of the vote. If confirmed, it would mark one of the strongest results for a single party in recent years, though still short of an outright parliamentary majority.
North Korea launched a ballistic missile towards the east today, according to Yonhap news agency, citing South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff. It marks Pyongyang's first ballistic missile test since 8th of April and the latest in a series of weapons launched this year. Japan's defense ministry has condemned the launch, saying that the incident threatens regional peace.
Including the repeated ballistic missile launches, North Korea's series of actions threaten the peace and security of Japan, the region, and the international community. Furthermore, such ballistic missile launches violate relevant UN Security Council resolutions and constitute a serious issue concerning the safety of our people. Regarding this latest launch, Japan has lodged a strong protest and condemned North Korea through diplomatic channels at the embassy in Beijing.
The United States says the government of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the rebel group AFC have agreed on initial steps to reduce violence and improve humanitarian access. In talks held in Switzerland this week, both sides made progress on a draft agreement, including safe passage for aid convoys, protection under the justice system, prisoner releases, and monitoring of the ceasefire. They also agreed to ease restrictions on humanitarian workers, allowing aid teams and supplies to move more freely through affected areas, while also pledging to avoid attacks on civilians as efforts continue to stabilize the situation. Now, Pope Leo continued his Africa tour with a visit to Angola, arriving in Luanda from Cameroon. He was welcomed at the airport by Angolan President João Lourenço. In his speech, the pontiff criticized the exploitation of Africa's natural resources. He also said that some leaders make promises but fail to deliver them, causing suffering for the people. Locals described his visit as a sign of hope. Now let's take a closer look at the key stories from the region. The Antalya Diplomacy Forum has wrapped up after 3 days of high-level diplomacy in Turkey, bringing together leaders and officials from over 150 countries. Regional security, energy cooperation, and diplomatic mediation dominated the agenda, with Azerbaijan playing an active role in the key discussions.
This year's Antalya Diplomacy Forum brought together nearly 4,700 participants from 148 countries, including dozens of heads of state and government. Azerbaijan attended with a high-level delegation led by President Ilham Aliyev, alongside Presidential Advisor Hikmet Hacıyev and Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov. Much of the discussion focused on regional cooperation models, moving from bilateral ties toward broader trilateral and multilateral mechanisms shaped by regional ownership.
In our region, Turkey-Azerbaijan bilateral cooperation is an important cornerstone of the regional peace and security. And we have transformed bilateral cooperation in the trilateral model of the cooperation, and again fulfilling the full regional ownership. Here, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Georgia cooperation, or Turkey, Azerbaijan, Iranian cooperation, or we have also stretched our hand to our Central Asian brothers. Trilaterally or multilaterally, we built in a mechanism of the cooperation at a practical level. It serves the interests of the both countries. Then let me also provide you in a practical thematic areas of the regional ownership and regional cooperation. One of them is an energy security, energy cooperation.
Regional security and mediation efforts were another major focus, particularly around de-escalation involving Iran, as well as the conflicts in Gaza and Lebanon. President Aliyev also held talks with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Syria's transitional president Ahmed al-Shara, where wider regional stability and political coordination were discussed. Participants warned that further escalation involving Iran could have consequences far beyond the immediate conflict zone.
We were pushing for this war not to break out in the first place, also because Iran is a country with a population of about 85 million people, and any harm that befalls Iran from within could affect the region in general. We are pushing for a stable region and for its problems to be resolved through dialogue and diplomacy.
Energy security remained central throughout the forum, from gas exports and pipeline diplomacy to transport corridors linking the Caspian region with Europe and Asia. At the same time, European and transatlantic security issues were also raised, including Russia-West relations, sanctions, and defense policy in Europe. Russian officials used the platform to criticize Washington's approach to global energy markets and continued pressure on Russian companies.
We have a lot of disagreements with the current American administration, especially when it comes to developing matters. No sanctions have been lifted since the times of Biden. Even the diplomatic property has not been returned yet, and our companies have already come under new sanctions. That the goal is U.S. domination of world energy markets.
Delegates also discussed maritime security and the importance of keeping global trade routes open, particularly through the Strait of Hormuz. With temporary ceasefires still fragile across the region, speakers stressed that short-term truces must be turned into lasting political settlements to protect both regional stability and global supply chains.
The Secretary-General of the Organization of Turkic States said the Middle Corridor could be an alternative to routes affected by the ongoing conflict. He said the corridor was previously seen mainly as an alternative route, but interest has increased after the Russia-Ukraine war and tensions in the Middle East. According to the Secretary-General, the Middle Corridor is becoming a more safer, efficient, shorter and cheaper transport route. The route connects China and Southeast Asia with Europe through Kazakhstan, the Caspian Sea, Azerbaijan, Georgia and Turkey. He said the organization was created to support cooperation, not to directly resolve conflicts, and works across areas including foreign policy, tourism, agriculture, transport and space. He added that an informal summit of member states leaders in Turkestan on 5th May will provide an important platform for talks.
As you know, without logistics, we cannot develop. So this is why I see you would like to ask me about. So middle corridors, how is significant? Of course, but now is middle corridor is firstly is history back. This is Silk Road. So if you before is middle corridor is considering as more alternative road, before Russian-Ukraine conflict or in the Middle East. So this is only not alternative, now it's becoming a real one, and the efficiency in the shorter one. Because 2,000 shorter than to see in the year. Also in the, as about mentioned about this in conflict, this is really one is more safely, but also important now is look for short efficiency, more cheaper and shortly. And another our projects like is China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan rail is also, after it's finished this project, it will be shortened for another 15 days. Our upcoming informal summit, Organization of Turkic State, to be held in Turkestan, in our spiritual capital in Turkic world in Kazakhstan, on May 15th, will be under theme artificial intelligence and digital development.
Kovan, a platform considered strategically important for Turkey's software sector, has completed its first export to Azerbaijan. According to the statement, the enterprise resource management system was developed to securely manage sensitive data and support the domestic tech ecosystem. It has already been used in several Turkish institutions, including the Supreme Election Council. Closer ties between Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan are translating into stronger economic cooperation as trade between the two neighbors continue to grow. With long-standing border issues now resolved, the focus is now shifting to deeper integration and expanded regional connectivity. Sylvia Rajapova has more.
Trade turnover between Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan has reached $1 billion, reflecting the steady strengthening of economic and political ties between the two neighboring countries. The figure was highlighted this week during talks in Istanbul between the Speaker of the Kyrgyz Parliament, Marlen Mamutaliyev, and Tanzila Narbayeva, chairperson of the Senate of Uzbekistan. The sides noted that finalization of border demarcation has played a key role in boosting bilateral trade. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, sections of the Kyrgyz-Uzbek border remain disputed, particularly in the densely populated Fergana Valley. A breakthrough came after high-level negotiations between Sadegh Japarov and Shavkat Mirziyoyev, leading to a comprehensive agreement finalizing 1,476 kilometers of the shared border by the end of 2022. The deal included land swaps, joint management of the Kempira-Bat reservoir, and the resolution of disputed sections, significantly improving border stability. Further progress was made in March 2025 with a trilateral agreement in Khujand, which helped finalize remaining boundary points and strengthened regional cooperation. Economic cooperation has shown strong growth in recent years. Trade turnover stood at around $846 million in 2024 and reached $1 billion over the past year. This growth reflects expanding trade volumes, diversification of goods, and deeper industrial cooperation. In addition to trade, both sides highlighted growing cultural and humanitarian ties, including an increase in tourism and people-to-people exchange. Officials stressed that improved border stability alongside expanding business cooperation, joint industrial projects, and better transport connectivity is creating conditions for further growth in both bilateral trade and long-term regional integration. It is Sylvia Rajapova reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, AnewZ.
All right, that's all we have for now. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to AnewZ.